Inbox searching activated.
Ooh, taxi.
Okay, we are making a little bit of progress here. I've got ball guides somewhat installed and polished. This one I have to fix. So the threaded post that goes here, it's called a spade post. If anyone is curious, it took me a while to figure that out. So it's a little riveted post here, and it sits right there, kind of, ish, somewhere in there. Anyhow, that was snapped off under the Playfield. So I've got some parts ordered off of eBay, and I've drilled that out and removed that riveted piece, and I'm going to re-rivet on another one. I've already done the same process here. So you can see that right there this is another one of those posts that I scavenged off another ball guide I had. I only had one though, unfortunately. And I riveted on a new rivet there. So that's done. Posts are polished and in. I got these big posty things polished, and they're just in there for now. I'm going to attach them with the nuts here at another point. I just wanted to get them in the right spot. You do have to make sure that these are all correct. Let me get you some measurements real quick in case you're doing a taxi. All right, I actually screwed this up myself. So luckily somebody on the internet was kind enough to have this. So this one here is a 4-inch post. Okay, over here we have a 2 7/8. This one is a 4 1/8. Back here I believe is a 3. It's a little bit questionable. But everything else was measured, and there's a 3-inch post that goes there, or there's a 3-inch post left, and that's where my photos had a post, so that's where I'm putting that one for now. And then that one is a 3.5. Now there is one more post that is right here, and that one goes like right here, but because it's on the rotisserie, I can't put it on there yet. And this one is like 4 1/4, something like that. Yeah, it's 4 1/4. So the 4 1/4 post is going to go somewhere in this vicinity once I get it off the rotisserie, because that's the back standoff. I got my hinges installed. These were tumbled in the tumbler and polished and put in. These were all tumbled. I've got a couple other pieces here to install. This one-way gate was tumbled. Here's all my shiny bits in here waiting to go on. My tumbler is over there tumbling away on the last of the topside hardware that I just pulled off. This is the state of the old Playfield. So you can see I've got all of the hardware off of it. The metal hardware anyway, so that way it can tumble down there in the tumbler. This stuff I have to do by hand. It's too big for the tumbler, so I don't take that off just yet. I actually should take that ball protector off and tumble it. I'm going to do that here in a sec after I get rid of this video. So my next steps, we're going to let all that tumble. I'm going to take the sides off, at least up to here. These backs can't go on while it's on the rotisserie, but this can go on, this, and these pieces can go on. I'll get those on there, and then pretty much this Playfield is ready to be flipped upside down, and I can start working on the backside and getting all that stuff off. I will say that I had no idea, like I said, this game had never been apart. I had no idea how difficult all the fasteners were going to be to take off. I think that whoever messed with this game before I had it put Loctite on a lot of the threaded posts that go into the blind nuts, because I ended up snapping off about 4 posts in the blind nuts because they just wouldn't come out. And like this one right here, so it just would not come out, and the head ended up snapping off. So I had to install, new blind nuts and just get new screws. But yeah, this was probably one of the most challenging just disassemblies on the top side that I've ever done. It's taken me... Show you guys real quickly replacing these little spade bolts. So here's the old ones. You can see they snapped off. Probably just from being hit so many times. So I've already replaced one. These, I pirated off another extra ball guide I had from another game, just extra parts I had bought at a swap meet. So I pirated these, and I'm going to install one of them onto my my ball guide. So hang on one sec. All right, here's the ball guide that needs a bolt. And I've already removed the old one, obviously, and knocked out the old rivet. So what I'm going to do now is rivet the new one back in with this handy dandy Ramp-O-Matic riveting kit. So let me get that set up and I'll be right back. Okay, so this kit comes with different size rivets, and it comes with the little washers for the rivets, okay? So since I've done one before, I know that the 8mm rivet is the right one. This kit comes with everything from 6mm all the way up to 10mm. Most of the stuff that I've done with this, like, ramps and stuff, is usually in the 8 range, 7 or 8 range. So, like I said, I did the other one already. And so I know it needs this rivet. So you just take the rivet itself. Get over here. There you go. Rivet itself. You're going to put it through the hole. Okay. Now, I'm going to take my spade bolt here and install it. Now, what you want, if you can see, is you want a couple of millimeters of space. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of these washers and you're going to put the washer on top of the rivet, okay? And that's what's going to actually be held by the rivet and hold the piece in place. So you have to have enough room for the, let me see if I can show you this, for the washer to go on and there's still to be enough space on that rivet to clamp down well. Now, this one's a little bit generous, but it worked well for the last one. And I want to make sure if you don't, my experience is you kind of want to err on the side of more rivet exposed versus not enough. Because if you don't get enough, it's not going to flare out correctly. You're not going to hold. Now, this is your little punch tool. And one end of it has the little punching in. So you just put this on top of here. Goes right in the center of the rivet. And you're just going to hammer it. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like. So when you're done, okay, that is riveted flush. Okay, it's got a good little flange around it, and that is nice and tight. It's not wiggly at all. So that's how you do that. Put it on the game. Topper update. So I decided to clean this topper up a little bit. So it had the original just stickers on it. Actually, this is a new topper that I had bought a few years ago for a taxi. And I just bought the regular stick-on ones you can get from Marco or whatever. But those are just like solid pieces of plastic. And they don't look as good. So what I did was I made this on Cricut. So you take the original and I put it into Photoshop and basically just isolated the taxi part. And then there's a Cricut that my daughter knows how to use that you can cut these things out. And now what I have is individual vinyl pieces to go in here. So I can't do this, I can't put the taxi on while I am filming, so I'm gonna shut this off and I'll be back. So here's the original that I took off. And I scanned that and put it into Photoshop. And then I took off the TM part and just isolated the taxi, cut it out in the Cricut, and bam, there it is. And you can see that now it's just the letters and the actual plastic underneath. It looks way better. Happy with that. The magic of the polisher. So this is after 24 hours in the polisher. So if you don't know how these little crank arms for your slingshots come apart, there's a little retaining pin here. You just pull that out, and there's the base and then the arm, and it sits like that, right? So when your slingshot fires, it pulls it back like this and fires it. So these are ready to be installed. You can see I've tumbled my pop bumper brackets. All of this got tumbled. I went ahead and cleaned up all of the flipper bases and mechs and everything. I'll reassemble all that. And still tumbling over there. And all of those parts, at least all the metal parts, will eventually get tumbled and cleaned up. So I'm gonna go ahead and build up the back side of this just with all the main pieces on, so I can then run the ground wiring and not hit anything that I'm not supposed to hit. It makes it easier just so you kind of get an idea of where things go, and that way you don't end up later on having to reroute wiring or something because you did something wrong. So these came out really nice too. These are the plungers for the pops. So again, just polishing, and I don't polish the little fiber things. I just clean those up with simple green, but the rest of it all got polished and reassembled. So this is how the parts look when they come out of the tumbler. Looks good. The bad news is you have to now pick out all of the media out of little openings like this. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to reassemble all of these kickouts and things and get those on here. These are all of my solenoid brackets, obviously. I'm not going to put these on yet because you want to make sure that when they're firing that the solenoids are free and they're not binding at all. So I don't like to put these down and screw them in until I have the solenoids in place. And that way I know that it's going to work correctly and it's not going to bind on the plunger as it goes up and down. Couple of things I'm going to do here. So I changed these out for clears at both spots, and I'm going to do some lighting effects here, I think. Those were red on the original. I've got the red ones over there cleaning. But I'm going to do clears. I like clears. It gives you more lighting options. If you want it to be red, you can always just put a red LED on this. But I might do some multicolor stuff. I don't know. We'll see. Get creative on that a little bit. So I'm going to start picking stuff out. What I use for this is just a safety pin to get the media out of all these little spots. Like right here, you can see, there's media in that little groove for the pins. You just got to pick all that out. So I'm going to reassemble these and show you what it looks like. All right, we're ready to start getting ready to run ground braid here. So the first step is to remove these flush mounts sockets and install them in the other Playfield. As you can see, these are held down by staples. And I like to move these over because, as you can see, there's braid that goes to them, and it's much easier to have the tabs here when you're ready to go and run this braid, so you hit it exactly, versus trying to guess where it's going to be and then you end up missing or whatever, you miscalculate and you got to run little short pieces or whatever. So the big deal is just take pictures of where your power's coming in, right? So you're hot in your ground here. So I believe this is ground and this is your hot, if I'm not mistaken. But I just take pictures of everything, And then I'm going to pull every single one of these, and I just move them one at a time over to the other Playfield, put them where they go. I'll use my pneumatic gun to staple them in, just one staple. And then when I run my ground braid, I can run it directly to the tabs and know that it's going to work right. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've got my soldering iron here. You can see it's at 725. That is my preferred temperature for this kind of stuff. This is old solder. It takes a while to melt. If I'm doing anything on circuit boards, you're more like 625. But for this kind of stuff, it makes the job a whole lot easier and faster just to heat your soldering iron up to pretty hot temperatures, and it'll help you a lot when you're trying to get these free. So I'm gonna get going. Just show you guys how I do this. So here's the staple I'm gonna take out, okay? You just wedge a flathead screwdriver underneath and gently pry, pop the staple out. Then you're gonna take your, where are they? Take your needle nose pliers, and I just go ahead and pull these out, mainly just to keep myself from sticking myself into my hand the next time I'm trying to work on the Playfield. So you just go down, you can see I've done this one already. And now to pull these out, you just desolder these leads and the socket will come right out. All right, how to desolder sockets from ground braid like this. So the easiest way I've found, again, hot soldering iron, 725. I grab the tab back here and I'm just gonna heat this solder to where it's really loose and then rotate the tab away. It'll go. There we go. Okay. And now what you can do if you really want to is just rotate it back. All right, whatever. This one, obviously I've already desoldered the ground leads here, so I'm just gonna take this one off like this. Now I'm just gonna leave that there until I'm ready to move it. I'm gonna take this and move it directly to its correct hole over there. This one gets power from the ground braid and it sends power to this guy. Okay, now this isn't a big deal because sockets don't have polarity. It doesn't matter which way, it'll light the same no matter what. But just to keep it together and keep it to where it's the same way, what I like to do is resolder these onto the lugs after I've removed it from the braid. And then I'm just gonna unscrew this and I'll move these as a unit over. And that way they're always together and I don't get confused. So, all right, we have our sockets all stapled in. So I'm gonna go ahead and start running ground braid. And this is really straightforward. This is tinned copper wire, okay, bare wire. You can buy it online. And really all you're gonna do, because I leave my ground braid pretty much intact over on the other side, on the old Playfield, I mean. So it's pretty straightforward to just go back and forth between the two and just copy what's going on. So this particular one starts here. I gotta put the safety off, there we go. And again, this is an upholstery. This is an upholstery gun. Okay. What I gotta do is come over here, come across, and I gotta come inside this way. So ground braid is down. You can see just kind of how I did it. Just, you know, again, just follow the pattern. These little tails, I found it easiest to just kind of bring it down and then put one staple across both when you're trying to get a tail down to those things. This was pretty straightforward. The only kind of touchy spot was right over here. I kind of had to be careful about not hitting things there. It was kind of tight. And then right here was also kind of tight. But as long as there's nothing touching, you should be good. The other thing I always do is check all of these for continuity with my multimeter and make sure there's no shorts before I go any further. because you don't want to like start moving stuff over and find out you have a short later, because it's way harder to deal with. So next step is to go get my multimeter, test all this, and assuming everything looks good, then we're ready to start depopulating that and move all that mess over to here. Okay, so here is our old Playfield. And what I did, with the help of my beautiful wife, is I used a piece of plywood. You can see it over there behind that high-speed Playfield. Small piece of plywood. I just slide it. We slide it down, and we just move all the pieces on top so that they all stay in sort of the same orientation. And you bring it over here, and you then slide it off in generally the same orientation. And it's a mess, but it's less of a mess than if you just try and pick everything up and move it, because then everything moves and dangles and it's a mess. So now really what I do is I start at one end to the other. This time I'll probably start at the top, and you start putting things in. Like here's a flasher bulb, goes right there, okay? And you're just gonna use your pictures and videos that you've taken before of the previous Playfield. The other thing I recommend is remember that there's a lot of marks and shadows and things, and you can use those actually to be pretty helpful in if you have a question of where something goes. Come back over here, obviously look at all of your pictures and stuff, but sometimes this will help too. So I don't go and clean all this stuff off yet and clean up the back of this Playfield until that one has everything pretty much in place. So I'm gonna get going with that. All right, just gonna kind of walk you through how to rebuild a drop target bank. So this is one of the two drop target banks off this game. I disassembled it and cleaned it with Simple Green, and then give it a little bit in the tumbler just to take some of the goop out. I really don't care if this is super shiny. I just want it to be clean and very functional. A lot of times your drop targets will be sluggish, and that's because there's goo and all kinds of stuff on these posts, and the drops just aren't able to move freely as they should. So doing this will help that. So the first thing to do is on this side, you have this plunger for your solenoid, and this is what resets your drops, okay? Now this, what I did was I did take this apart, I tumbled it, and I just kind of regrained this quickly. You can see, hopefully, that there are some wear marks here on these little fingers from where the drop targets were hitting it over and over again. And on the other side, there's wear marks from the set screws that are at the bottom. So I flipped this over. All right, so this was the former bottom and this was the former top. This was the part that contacted the drop target bodies. And so I just flipped it over so you have a fresh surface here and then a fresh surface here. So that way it's sort of like having a new one, but not as expensive. All right, so you have this keeper piece here, okay? This goes with the tab pointing up, like that. And then I'm gonna put 2 lock nuts on that. All right, so now that's on. Pieces of drop target stickers all over the place because I removed them. All right, now I flip it over. Now we're going to work on this side. Now there's a little bit of a difference here in that there is a set of washers that goes on the top part, on the top posts, but not the bottom posts. So don't make the mistake of putting washers on both sides. And I like to make sure that the surface is pretty nice and shiny on these washers, because these are actually a surface where the drop target's going to ride against. And so I like it to be a pretty smooth surface like that, okay? So the reason that there's washers here is because you want the drops to be slightly angled backwards so that they can clear this little bar. This is where the little notch in the drop bodies catches, okay? So I've got my 3 drop targets here. These were all okay. I didn't replace these. They're all fine. So what I do with these is take a razor blade and scrape off the decals. Here's one, okay? Old decals, and then I use Goo Gone to get all the old adhesive off and a razor blade to just kind of scrape it and get it nice and clean. And then I clean the entire thing with Simple Green just to get it nice and fresh, okay? So it's ready to go on. So the little tab goes towards the black piece there like that. I'm gonna set this down so I can work. All right, so we're just gonna set that down. All right, and you just do all three here, like that. And the last one's here, like that, okay? Now, for the keeper pieces for this, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have a sandwich of a washer. There's a washer, and a washer, and then a spring. There, and there. And then another washer on top of the sandwich. And then you get one of these C-clips, and that goes right there, like that. Okay, you do the same process for each one. So this is what it should look like when you're done, okay? You've got your sandwiches here of the spring. You've got a washer underneath on this side. This just has a little clip on it, the little C-clips. That's it, there's no washer or anything on this. And then you have 3 springs here. So when your solenoid fires, pushes everybody up, they'll lock, ball hits them, they come down, okay? And this is a good time to just make sure that they're nice and smooth. They come down all the way, they're not binding at all. So that's pretty good. This one's tiny touch sluggish. You can put a little bit of graphite on these little channels just to make sure it slides easily, and I might do that. Do not put oil or grease or anything on these because they'll just gum up and they won't work well. The last step for this is to put the board on it. Okay, I'm gonna actually wash these boards off, but these are the boards for the optos to detect when their things come down. These little slots are for these little tabs on your drop target. So I'm just gonna say, when you're looking at your drops, okay, you really need to make sure, okay, now that's better. You need to make sure that these tabs are intact, because if they're broken, obviously you're not gonna detect it on your little sensor piece. So I'm gonna wash these in warm soapy water just to clean them up. But basically, these guys go on like this. Okay, and there's little grommets that go there. Those are gonna push in, and they get, 2 of them get a little washer, and then a keeper, and then I think the top one doesn't get a washer, it just gets a keeper pin. Okay, so last thing I like to do when I'm doing these is take a Q-tip, and you can use either Windex, or this is just 91% isopropyl alcohol. And I only do this for the optos, really. I think I might have already done this one, so this one may not be too dirty, but you take a Q-tip and just rub it in there and clean this opto surface like that. So you can see, I think I did that one already. Here's what I originally got off. You can see it's pretty dirty. There you go. Those are now ready to be put back together. All right, so I'm gonna assemble this one now. Take your opto board, okay? It just sits right on top of there, like that. Push it down. It's got these little grommets on it that just go and serve, I think it's just insulation. I don't know if there's supposed to be one there or not. There's not one on the other board either, I don't think. No, see, that one's empty too. So, and then you're gonna take these little, tiny little pins, and they just go right over here and pop down like that. You got one here. Oh, actually, these ones get a washer on top of them. Why the top one doesn't get a washer, I don't know. But it doesn't, so I didn't put one on there. At least it didn't when it was on there originally. So whether it had one at one point, I don't know. I'd have to look at the little manual to see. But neither of them had it on there. So, oops. This is the Dracula slingshot mech for this game, and I've confirmed my suspicions. When I was reassembling this, I noticed there was some stuff in the hole for that bracket, and I pulled it out, and look at that. You see what that is? That, my friends, is Loctite. Don't put Loctite on your games, people. Just makes things harder for those of us who want to rebuild it. Reassembled. Works nicely now. I did replace these screws down here because the Loctited ones, this one of them did come out without too much trouble. The other one I had to cut with a metal wheel to get out of there. So again, just use lock washers and tighten them down correctly. You don't need to Loctite these things. So also had to replace this spring. It was actually broken, which is why you keep extra springs and doodads and stuff in your little spare parts box. So ready to go back on. Okay. So gotten everything screwed in. All of the coils have been rewrapped. All of the mechs have been cleaned and rebuilt. I've got a little bit of soldering to do, like I've got to solder, you know, the GI lights and stuff in. That won't take very long. The drops have been rebuilt. I did not replace these little spoons because they were all in good shape, but I did adjust all those switches so they're all correct. But this is now ready to be flipped back over and start working on the top side a little more. So I'm going to finish up the little bit of soldering that I have left to do and then flip it over and go from there. Oh, I forgot to install those. So I do have to do that. They're around here somewhere. So I will install those. Here they are. So these two guys go in there. So I'll just have to pull this mech off, put those two in. Oops. So I'll get that on there and then we'll flip it over. All right. So I think this is where I'm going to stop this episode. Next episode, we will be building up the top side and probably putting on the armor and everything on the cabinet and getting close to putting this into the cabinet where it belongs. So that's the idea. Thanks for watching.